Welcome back, everybody. Usually I do a introductory for our guest, but this person I know very little but deeply admire because when one of our previous guests you heard on the show, when Colette introduced me to Mitch, the owner of Avant Garde Exotics Lamborghini here in LA, I had to get him on the show. I had to hear his story. So rather than me doing an introduction, we'd love for him to do an introduction, a little bit about his background, who he is, how did he get into the exotics car world, and it feels like he's living a childhood dream right
Yeah,
now.
to a lot of extent, it is. The beauty of this is, as a kid, you know, ironically enough, I was into building things. I wasn't the kid that um would go to car shows or go to this. I didn't really it wasn't even on my radar.
Mm,
But what I did do as a kid was I built a lot. I was always tinkering with things, fascinated with how things work.
mm,
And as that grew and as I grew older and was doing more and more, got into high school, then it was like, oh, I can drive. Now I can do this. And then start tinkering with my own cars. My first car was literally a set of rollerblades. I didn't get a first car.
mm,
Um, so I had to kind of work very hard uh, for my own stuff. And my first car was actually a 93 Mustang. And I instantly at that point, I fell in love. I was already kind of doing car work, already interested, um, doing audio systems, doing all kinds of stuff with one of a place that I worked at. And at that point, I just, it was like that. I was a sponge,
mm,
and everything that I saw, I wanted to learn, so I would learn how to do car audio stuff. I learned
mm,
how to really just put myself in any position, anywhere, start looking at shops and I'd be like, hey, are you hiring? Are you doing this? And as soon as a couple of like fairly decent custom ones would come around, be like, yeah, you know what, we have an opening. I would jump on it and
mm,
I would get in there. And at that point, I think really the shop that I worked at where everything was custom and it was kind of really the height of the car audio, fabrication kind of era, if you will. People were building elaborate stuff. We would take a brand new car and literally rip everything out of it
mhm,
and build everything. Build all new door panels, build the trunk, build back, all these things. And at that point, I was like, man, this is the coolest thing in the world. And I would get there and I'd learn all these new skills. I'd learn how to do all this stuff. And then it was like, I want more.
mm,
And so at the same time, what I also fell in love with was we would build this crazy car, build something else, and then that person would come in
mhm,
seeing that car, whether it was a client or
mhm,
sometimes we do things for manufacturers, and they would just be like, "Holy cow! Like this is absolutely amazing!" And at that point, I was I was hooked. I was like, "This is such an awesome feeling."
yeah,
Where now you can take you're kind of taking someone else's dream, someone else's vision, someone
mm,
else's thought,
mhm,
and you're making it a reality off of something that didn't exist.
mhm,
And then as that grew, I kept springboarding and eventually I got to a place where I'm like, you know what? I can, I can do all this. I'm very comfortable in my craft. I know. And finally, once I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I feel like I can't really grow without because I'm confined to an extent. I had a very good friend of mine
mhm,
that honestly took a on me and he's like, dude, you've been doing all this. I've worked on all his cars. I did everything. He's like, dude, why don't you just open up your own place?
mm,
I'm like, yeah, but I have no idea. Like, sure, I can run a business. I run people's businesses. I do all this, but I've never been a business owner. I don't know the first thing about it.
right.
I have an idea,
Yeah, you've been a
but
technician. Yeah.
at that point, startup cost. What do I got to buy? I'm like, sure, I have tools, but I need stuff.
Mhm,
And he's like, you know what? I believe in you. And, how much do you have saved? And he's like, okay, well, here, I'll give you, a small chunk of money and do it. He's like, you need to do it. And fortunately of him,
mhm,
I'm at where I'm today because someone took a shot on me where they're like, you know
mm,
what? I'm gonna help you and I'm going to help you see your dream through because I see you're just as passionate. And
Yeah.
this is a friend that I admire so incredibly much, so incredibly talented and smart. And
Yeah.
he's built his business to now
Mm.
an extraordinary level.
Yeah.
And I think at that point too, I also learned a very good lesson. When you're a kid, the same thing everyone says, okay, if you hang around the bullies, if you hang around the class clowns, if you hang around this, and I was that class clown. I love to entertain. I love to, to,
Yeah.
make jokes. And at the time, most of them were at my own expense.
Yeah.
But you learn at that point when it's like, okay, now it's time to grow up, that who you are around
Mhm.
is everything.
Mm.
If you surround yourself, the people that you surround yourself around is where you're going to end up.
Mhm.
So if you're in a bad environment, guess what? You end up in that bad environment. And one thing that he instilled in me is it's okay to not be the smartest person in the room.
Mm.
In fact, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room
Yeah.
because at that point, you have nowhere to go. When you find yourself in positions, find the other person that has a business, find the other person that wants to end up doing something,
Mm.
and accept that. Once you accept that you have room to grow and you need to grow and kind of humble yourself in a way, at that point, opportunities start to present themselves. And at that point, now other people see that you're passionate
Mm.
and have that drive
Mm.
and is able to learn very young because in today's climate, everything is entitlement. Everything is,
Ain't that
well,
the truth?
I showed
Yeah.
up.
Where's my
We're,
check? Yeah.
you know, what do you mean you're not rolling out the red carpet? What do you mean you're not,
Yeah.
you walk in and you're being showered with money and gifts?
Yeah.
Like, that's not how it works,
Yeah.
you know? And especially when I was young, there was nothing that was handed to me.
Yeah.
There was no, hey, have to go out tonight. I want to go to the movies. Okay.
Mhm.
That's nice. Cool
Mhm.
story. And like, well, can I maybe, have $10 to
Mhm.
go to the movies? Like, no. And at this point, I was already kind of working when I was young, but all these little things that I didn't know and to an extent,
Mhm.
um, I didn't understand. I was like,
Yeah.
man, my parents are just, man, they are just so damn hard on me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get like, here I am 13 and I'm like, hey, you know what? I need to get some socks. I need to get underwear. And they're like, that sucks. Go
Mhm.
get it. I'm like, okay. And it was, it wasn't really explained to me, but,
Mm.
it was also the best thing for me
Mm.
because as I went and got older and went through high school and all these things now, I was sure I was afraid to take that leap. Sure, I was afraid to start, but I knew that it was only on me. And
Mhm.
once you have that realization that, okay, the only person that holds your cards and the power to do anything is you.
Yeah.
Don't expect anything. Don't Definitely don't demand it.
Mhm.
But once you kind of have that really big moment, now there wasn't anything I could do. And as much as I kind of hated that concept as a kid, if I needed to fix something, if was at a friend's house and something broke, if whatever it was that I needed to do, I had the skills to do it. I mean, I
Mm.
could do plumbing, I could do carpentry, I can do electrical, I could do all these different
Mhm.
skills that at the time as a kid, I'm like, man,
Mhm.
man, I'm getting my butt kicked here, but it made me independent.
Mm.
And right now, so many people are so reliant. It's like, if you don't know the answer, what's the first thing you do? Oh, let me get to my phone. Oh,
Exactly.
let me do this.
Yep. Yeah.
That didn't exist back then.
No, you
And
had to figure it out.
it's crazy
Yeah.
to think that when you look back and I'm like, you know what? The internet wasn't a thing until I was like in the middle of high school. And it's
Yeah.
like, on one hand, you seem like such a dinosaur, but it's like that was what, 30, you know, 25, 30 years ago when it really started to come. And it's like from where we started before the age of things just, you don't have to work for it. If you
Mhm.
need an answer before it was go to a library, go look it up, go, find somebody else. Where now you have all this information, but the ironic part is that no one wants to do anything with it.
Right.
You
I
know?
want to touch base on one part you mentioned that was crucial in your success. This friend that really took a chance on you. This friend that really trusted you. alongside with people lacking a drive, this entitlement, I think a big fallacy in today's world, a big part of relationship, people are not holding on to these key relationships. I see a lot of young people, oh, we had a disagreement, I'm never talking to that person again.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart to see so many young people going through that journey in life. It's like, you know what? You never know how that person could be a positive influence for you later in life. So talk about that relationship you
Yeah.
had with this friend that really trusted you. What was it that kept the glue, the bond, the relationship together over the years for him to
You
took
know,
such a chance on you?
I think to an extent, the
Yeah,
only thing that we have is kind of our own personal integrity
yeah,
and our word.
mm,
And, with him, it started off where I met him as a customer that came in and I was doing some work and we just clicked,
mm,
like we had the same humor, same,
yeah,
everything. And, if, let me just to put it in perspective of this guy. So his name is Paul
yeah,
and he's the owner of Smart Wax and Chemical Guys, which is one of the largest detailing product companies in the world.
mm,
And I would watch him as I'm learning in my craft and all this, and he's kind of doing the same thing. So we're doing this, and he would sit and he'd be day and night on the weekends. He'd
mm,
be. I'm like, man, this guy's like really on it. And so I'd ask him, and I'd learn, and I
mhm,
wouldn't sit back, and it wasn't, hey, what can you do for me? It
mm,
was, what are you doing? Like, can I be a part or watch and kind of observe? And I think
yeah,
observation is everything
mm,
because if you go in and that person that's, man, this person's so smart, I want to be like them.
mhm,
Well, if you just go and say, hey, how can I be like you? Which is everybody's quick, everybody wants that instant gratification.
sure,
There is no instant gratification because people
mm,
have had to do something themselves to bust their ass to do it. So the
absolutely,
last thing that
yeah,
anybody wants to do is be like, okay, who's this, this person that comes in,
mm,
very old school kind of
mhm,
philosophy. It's like, look, you work for it,
mm,
then you get it.
mm,
And so I would watch him and observe, and then I'd be able to bring something to the table to him. Be like,
mm,
oh, about this, or and I would ask, but now come because I would educate myself. So it's not just me saying, hey, give me all the answers.
mm,
See, you're doing this, and I'm doing this. I'm studying. Think is that a good thing to do? And so we would just kind of talk and revolve, and as time, it was natural. There wasn't something that I was trying to get out of him. There wasn't
mm,
something that he was trying to get out of me. We were both able to needed something, I'd be there for him. If I needed something, to bounce off, he would ask. And as we grew our friendship,
mm,
he would be a good source where if I needed to bounce something off or if I needed to do something, I knew he was one person
mm,
that would be brutally honest with me.
mm,
And at times, I hated it. I'm like, dude, you
mm,
were such like ass. Like, come, like, what are you doing?
yeah, and people can't take that
And
nowadays. Yeah,
and back then it wasn't a big deal.
yeah,
Now if I'm like, dude, I don't like you or whatever,
mm,
now it's like everyone's like, oh my, like it's the end of the world.
yeah,
But that is such if you have somebody in your life that can tell you, the person, hey, you got food on your face. Hey,
mm,
man, dude, you look like a train wreck today.
mm,
The people that can tell you the things that you don't want to hear, but you should,
mm,
that is a friend. There's reasons why when you have that, that old man or that, older person, they're like, you know what?
mhm,
I wouldn't do this or, do
yeah,
that. And as
retrospective,
kids, we're
yeah,
like, man, stop yapping at me. Like
mhm,
you're just old and grumpy and cranky and and they are so, more times than not, you find out they are so incredibly right. Because
mm,
now, in my point in my life, now I've turned into that where it's like, man, I wish I can go back and just kind of knock some sense into the younger version of me. Cause you're like, man, just listen or listen more. And
mhm,
at the very least, and I did listen, but I didn't give it a chance to really absorb some of that advice.
mm,
And in doing so, sometimes you win and
mhm,
sometimes you lose.
yeah,
And so having those crucial people, and more importantly, listening to those crucial people that at the end, if they're willing to tell you those things,
mhm,
that is who you want because there's no skin in the game. If I
mhm,
succeeded or if I didn't, at the end of the day, it doesn't have any effect to him other than like, oh man, you know what, my friend messed up, or yeah, I
yeah,
feel bad for this person. But it's not like it was going to impact his life is the reality of it.
I'm wondering throughout your whole life journey, obviously you've accomplished so much. Building this business in the exotic car world, had a, marriage, kids. I'm wondering if you look back in your life, like the last 10 years, if you were to reverse engineer, what are maybe some lessons that you would tell a younger version for the audience listening out there, someone that's just maybe like 23, 24 years old, they're just very driven, but they want to win in all areas of life. They want to have that family, right? So if you were to reverse engineer this, what would be some like a key timing or key factor you would tell to that person?
What I would tell you is,
Yeah.
and it may be cliche to an extent,
Yeah.
but you have to trust your gut.
Hmm.
And at times, listen that sometimes that voice may be, you need to reach out for help.
Mm.
And it's okay to ask for help. I was very proud, and because I was kind of always forced to figure it out the hard way or
Hmm.
learn, it made it to where it closed me off to a lot of opportunities, like personally, emotionally, things like that. Wise, everything, I had all that going. It was locked. It was great. I mean, I, made it through a recession. I made it through people filing bankruptcy on me. I mean, I was able to weather all those storms.
Mm.
But the one area that I failed the most was my home life.
Mm.
I became so hyper focused
Mm.
on, I need to get ahead. I need to provide. I need to be, I need to be able you know, to do these things. I want that car. I want that house. I want that, that family life. I want all those things that I was still broken,
Yeah.
and I could fix anything,
Hmm.
but I couldn't fix myself.
Mm.
And looking back at a younger me, be like, you're not, you know, yes, life is short. Yes, you don't want to waste time,
Hmm.
but you also don't want to be in such a hurry that you just pass everything.
Mm.
And in that process, I passed so many learning lessons. I passed so many relationship lessons. I passed so many things that I became
Hmm.
complacent
Hmm.
because I just didn't know any better.
Mm.
I was so hyper focused on one thing that I lost sight of myself. And in doing so, I didn't know what it was to be happy. I didn't know what it was like to really do that. I thought I did.
Mm.
I thought, well, I got this new tool. I was able to buy motorcycles. I was able to
Hmm.
do this. I was able to, you know, do these things, and then really, I think once my first daughter was born, it was like, you know what? I'm, it's not about me anymore. Life is so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
And the pivot became, I can't fail because of them. And if I don't really refine and fix those broken pieces
Yeah.
and get back to where I need to, well, I'm failing them, and I'm also not being a good example. And you know, in that whole rushing to get to the finish line, it made me, you make a lot of decisions that now you're forced into a corner. Now you're like, okay, you know, wow, I've been here, I've been in this relationship. Well, now time to get married. Oh, now it's time to do this. Now it's time to do that. And all on that time, I didn't have anybody that was really in it with me. You have to be able to put yourself out there and be
Mm.
willing to fail, but be able to know that that failure is
Mm.
what forges you.
Mm.
One popular show, and I actually use this reference with my kids the other day. My wife and I, we love building things and challenging ourselves, and we watch the show Forge of Fire. You look at a finished product, and whatever it is, whether it's a knife, a blast long, whatever it is, everything starts out as nothing,
Yeah.
or the ugliest thing. You make a knife, it starts off as the most of the time nothing fancy, nothing there,
Mhm.
but in the end, you grind it out, you know, you sweat, you bleed, whatever you have to do.
Mm.
And at the end, you're able to hold something. You're like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
And this is like, I built this. I
Yeah.
did this,
Yeah.
I went through this process. And now, through all that and going through my lows, and I had my point where I was buried. I went, and I thought I hit lows in my life. And accepting the fact that I need to be better for my kids. I need, I need to have my kids in a better environment because again, now
Mhm.
I'm in this situation where, yeah, I started too young. Yeah, I
Mhm.
started too much because I thought I knew better. Now it's not just myself that I put in precarious situations. I now put two beautiful, innocent girls in a position that at the end of the day wasn't really fair to them.
Mm.
And now they've had to deal with certain things that no kid should have to deal with. And it wasn't intention. It wasn't like, I'm going to do all this stuff, but I was a victim of my own, um, in a way, giving up on myself because
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm okay. No, it'll get better. And I kind of ripped that band-aid off. That band-aid wasn't just, "Oh, okay, that hurt. That
Mm.
band-aid profusely.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I realized I need to get back to those core people in my life.
Mm.
Those people that are going to tell me, even though, I kick a man when he's down,
Mm.
I I need to get that much lower to realize that I need to build myself
Mm.
back up and how to build myself back up correctly
Yeah.
for myself, for my kids. And during that process, I met my now wife,
Mm.
and it honestly was the best thing that could ever happen to me.
Mm.
I wished I met her way sooner in life
Mm.
because, we have the same sense of humor, we have the same drive. And at that point, I'm now, and for a while we were just friends, but, and I would say even just a quick kind of side note is in relationships, if you don't have someone that's willing to kind
Mm.
of kick your butt,
Mm.
that's willing to tell you those bad things, that's willing to also just be there and just listen
Yeah.
and just know that they're going to tell you, like, why, you
Mm.
know, but they're not going to because they know that, what, you just need to, vent, you need to have somebody. If you don't go back, and it's kind of like, if you don't go back at the end of the day, or when you come back from work, or even when you're at work, you're like, man, I already miss this person, or man, you know what? This person's just fun to be around. Well, don't get so focused on titles. I was
Mm.
focused on, okay, I need to have, okay, I'm working. Okay, I need to have a girlfriend. Well, I have that. Well, now I need to have a wife. Now I need to have kids. I was so focused on this life path that is the social norm of what people lay out for you that it couldn't have been more wrong. And the problem is that yes, there's things out there, and it's certain expressions, and of course, an expression you can take one of many ways, but it's how it pertains to you
Mm.
at that moment, and we'll lose sight of what a genuine friend is. And I
Yeah.
think, or a person or relationship, and before you have anything, before you become a best friend, before you become a wife, before
Mm.
you become anything that progresses,
Yeah.
if that foundation isn't
Mm.
solid, if
Mm.
you're not ride or die friends, if you're not,
Mm.
how you are in things and being able to do that, then that next level is a kind of a false bubble. It doesn't really mean anything.
Totally.
And once it pops, you're now inflating this balloon that you're like, oh man, this is so awesome and big. But what you don't realize is that just a delicate little tip of a pin
Yep.
blows everything apart,
Yep.
you know? And so it's super important to have those correct foundations in your
Yeah.
life.
You guys can just hear me nodding my head this whole conversation. Mitch just shared his life character experience throughout all of this. And I want to be respectful of your time because you just got so much life experience and wisdom to unpack. And this episode has just been a class A material in terms of character building as Mitch shared his story and his life journey. I'm wondering, Mitch, is there anything that I should ask you about life lesson, life experience that I haven't asked you yet? That you would really feel like, oh, this is a message for the world. People in today's world really need to hear this. I feel like we uncovered a lot in this episode,
Yeah.
but
There's, it's, we did,
mm.
I think, taking a moment to really understand what it is that you want in life.
Mm.
What is important to you? Understanding that what you may think is important to you may not necessarily be what's best for you. What you
Powerful.
think is the right path doesn't mean that it's there. And being able to build things with trust and honesty, you can't be truthful, and if you can't be honest with somebody, you're never going to grow.
Mm.
And, and that's, seems so simple, but it is by far so incredibly hard because you may not want to hurt someone's feelings. You may not want to end up doing that. And people end up taking it wrong. It's like, if you only view the world as it's only about me, then you're going to live a very sad, lonely,
Yeah,
unproductive life.
absolutely. Very
But
shallow. Yeah.
you have to be able to give. You have to be able to say, you know what, man, I know the answer this person is looking for, and
Yeah.
it is going to catapult them, and it's going to be great for them, or they won't make that mistake, or they won't
Yeah.
look bad, and have to want that, and have to want something good, because
Mm.
you know I have a few tattoos, but one of them to
Mm.
me is this one.
Yeah.
It-
Move
and
out.
it
You guys
says
can see it says
it says
farmer
it
on
says
there.
karma,
Yeah.
and everything's personalized. And of course, I did it in a Lamborghini font because that's how I am. So everything, even though
Yeah.
I have to have a personal touch.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've learned, and it's hard and it's challenging. It's not easy
Yeah.
because as human beings, we're natural. We as human beings chase that gratification, chase that for that own self gratification.
Hmm.
But when you see someone else get something, and you see this with kids, like when my kids do something and they figure it out, it's like, "Oh, that is so incredibly cool."
Yeah.
And, you know, but when you can do that to a colleague, when you can do that to a friend, when you can do that to a peer, and now you're like, man, I want to see them get bigger. I want to see them do well. Well, guess what? Now you have the teeter totter of life. One day you may be on the bottom, they may be on the top. Well, guess what? Everything teeters,
Hmm.
you know? And so now if you build this person up, now guess what? Now they're going to be that much more apt to help you when you're down here to say, hey,
Right.
let me give you a hand. Get your, butt up here. And
Absolutely.
so now as you're doing this, you're now climbing
Yeah.
up the world,
Yeah.
and that's gratifying, knowing that not everything is about you, and being reflective and mindful of that, to where kind of once you do it, you realize just how gratifying that is.
Hmm.
And don't give up. Don't, all those cheesy sayings. Well, they're cheesy sayings that have stand the test of time, that were said when I was a kid. They're still being said now, and they're going to be said for eons to come.
Yeah.
And there's a reason. And if anything, the best thing that probably anybody can do is, you know, spend time with grandparents, spend time with, older generations, and honestly, just listen.
Yeah.
Because every time that I put myself, whether it was a customer dropping off their car, doing something else. I mean, I'm in a business that, sure, I'm doing good, but there's a large portion of what I do, and even when I started to now, those are already successful people. They're already people that are killing it. They're already so high. And here I am, they're up here, and I'm just this guy right here just saying, hey, I like cars and I want to be around,
I
and
can customize
put
your
me in,
car.
coach,
Yeah.
and knowing that it's like, if you just listen and
Yeah.
just be real with people,
Mm.
they'll tell you things. Because now I have customers, and most of my people are customers that I've known for decades. And they'll be telling, hey, how you doing? What are you doing with this? Oh, I'm trying to do this. Oh, have you thought about that? Oh, actually, no, or I did, but I'm having this. Oh, that's because you're messing up here. So now that person that was so above you,
Mhm.
as far as like just what they've accomplished, now they're helping you get there. Now, if I was there and I'd be like, oh, what can I do? Tell me everything you know. You're not going to get there.
Yeah.
You have to get there humble. You have to get there saying, okay, people have to see what you want to do,
Right.
how you want to do it.
Right.
And those are the people that can help you be like, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
This kid wants it, or this person wants it. And now, then that's what encourages other people to help you.
Mhm.
And that's how you grow. And so listen, just, again, honestly, just listen. It's so simple. Don't overthink it. And if anything, go after people and stuff, or put yourself in environments that you are able to learn. Whether
Isn't that the truth of life? This has been a very interesting episode because shout out to my friend Will, by the way, and he connected me with you. I showed up today around a little bit before 10 o'clock, walked through all these exotic cars that you got in the garage. I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to interview this guy named Mitch. But the moment I met you, I can tell what really resonated was your integrity. You just say you say something and then you back up with your action. And then just how helpful you are, even helping me setting up equipment, how observant you are. You didn't have to do that, but you did. That just kind of tells your heart of service. And I'm curious for folks that do want to listen to this, maybe that hey, they have a passion for Lambo, maybe that they want to, they're in the LA area that wants to get connected with you. How do they find you? How do they reach out to you? Is it through Instagram, through website, stop by a shop, or where should we
I
send
mean,
them? Yeah.
the easiest way. I mean, the shop is always busy and busy, but
Mm,
I think some of the easiest ways is, you can, reach out to me on Instagram.
mm,
Usually, because things are so busy, it's my thing of like when I'm decompressing at night, like I love, and I have people that reach out
yeah.
and say things and ask, and you can tell the difference between someone who cares and, you know, wants something versus that shortcut answer.
Yeah.
And um, it's nice. It's refreshing to see people that are passionate and that have that drive and want to end up learning about it. So they can always reach out to me. It's Lamborghini Doctor on Instagram.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would say that, and one thing that you touched on too, say that, and as you're saying, okay, you're coming and we're helping. I don't even realize that.
Yeah.
Like that's not something where I'm like, because it's not a
Mhm.
agenda. And I think that's something, like you were saying, like what are things to instill? It's, I think probably maybe the two big things is don't make everything about yourself. Have that desire to make something better for everybody.
Mm,
Because if now, if I want this, that's great. But now if I have two people that want that, I have three people that want that. Now
mm,
guess what? Whatever that
mm,
is going to be that much better and has that much more potential because now you have two, three, four, whatever different opinions that all have the same goal, all have the same drive, that its only path
mm,
is that much higher,
mm.
than what it is. And the next thing is probably, it's so simple, but yet probably so hard, is a handshake.
Yeah.
And a handshake, not only in the sense of, you know, the timeless classic of, okay, introducing, having that respect, but at the same time, that handshake is more than a handshake. That handshake is a promise. That handshake is a bond. When you say you're going to do something, then you better do, or at least be able to show that you did whatever you could possibly do
Mhm.
to get that. Because nowadays, the world is filled of so many empty promises that the only thing you have is your word.
Yeah.
So if your word doesn't mean anything,
Yep.
you don't mean anything
Right.
because then no one's going to trust you. No one's going to care about you. No one's going to want to see you succeed. No
Mm,
one's going to want to do anything. But it's okay to say, you know what? I I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. One of
mm.
the kids that we had here, and real quick, the same thing. I kind of did, and it's funny in doing this. This is an exercise where it's like I look back and I'm like, just how crazy it is that certain things come full circle without you knowing.
Yeah.
You know, I had where I went to shops and I'm like, hey, let me push a broom, let me do this and do whatever. And, they would put me through the ringer, in a good way, not a bad way. But I have, there's a kid that works for us in here. And this kid would come all the time and he would just want to watch. He would sit from the parking lot, he would sit from here, and same thing, can I help? And we'd be like, you're too young, you're too young. And he'd come back every chance that he could. His mom would drop him off and he'd just be like, you know what? I just want to watch. If I can help. And I'd be like, well, you're too young.
Mm,
But then as he got older, I'm like, okay, you know what?
mm,
Go clean that up.
mm.
And he would do it just because he wanted to be around.
Yeah.
And to me, that passion, that drive, is what is making him and molding him in, you know, to a future tech, into something else that now
Hmm.
I've kind of like full circle molding somebody else in a way that now they can grow because they have that passion, they have
Hmm.
everything else,
Hmm.
and it's it's great to it's great to see that. So,
Absolutely.
be passionate,
What a
make
story.
sure your word is your bond,
Yeah.
um, and listen.
Yeah. Well, Mitch, this conversation been so real, man. You talk about handshake. Thank you so much for sharing your
Absolutely.
story, me and the audience, your life journey, and priceless, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. My
Absolutely.
pleasure.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right, y'all listening out there. I hope you guys liked it. Quite an amazing episode right here in California at the Avant Garde Lamborghini Doctors shop right here. Give us a follow, share the story if you guys liked it, and then take care. See you guys in the next episode. Hey, Will.
What's